Wang Yang suddenly attacks Gukai and lands several punches on him till he's dragged away by his brother's men, leaving Gukai coughing up blood. Wu Xingxin has had enough of the drama and asks the boys to leave her alone as she has nothing to do with their fight. But before she can leave with her friend, Wang Yang's elder brother stops her and intimidates her into not leaving as the fight happened because of her in the first place. He then goes on to invite her and her friend to hang out with them. Wang Yang is shocked and reminds him the deal was only to beat up Gukai and nothing more. Sensing his intentions, Wang Yang objects, but his brother holds him by his collar, threatening to stay out of his business. Just then, Zhang appears from behind and refuses to let Wu Xingxin go with those hooligans. Wu Xingxin is glad Zhang is there and asks about his new hair. Zhang tells her that Song Yi took him for a makeover. He then asks Wu Xingxin's friend to join them for lunch, which she gladly agrees. Wang Yang's brother can't handle being ignored like that and decides to teach Zhang a lesson. Little did he know by the time he's done plotting, he will be beaten to a pulp by Song Yi. But even then, Wang Yang is not threatened by what he witnessed and warns Zhang against taking Wu Xingxin with him. Irked by his audacity, Song Yi asks Wu Xingxin that she knows the twerp, referring to Wang Yang. Vexed after being called a twerp, Wang Yang also says some hurtful things to Song Yi, and soon they start bickering about who is grosser. Zhang jokes about the two getting along, and finally, Wang Yang admits he lost, but he warns he'll win Wu Xingxin back. Zhang intervenes and says he has already lost the battle because Wu Xingxin doesn't belong to anybody. He adds, with a hint of warning, to be good to Wu Xingxin or else he won't let him off the hook that easily. Even though Song Yi finds Wang Yang too emotional, easily exploited, and has issues, he still decides to take him under his wing and train him. The group soon leaves for lunch. Later that evening, while returning after sending the girls off to their house, Zhang thanks Song Yi for managing the company meticulously, as he wouldn't have been able to handle things alone. Song Yi smirks and asks Zhang if he's trying to make him barf. Zhang doesn't know how else to say it and tells him he will never repeat what he said ever again. Just then, he gets a text from Wu Xingxin saying that someone reported the afternoon incident as her getting kidnapped, and the school authorities have called her mom. But because she is unwell, Wu Xingxin asks Zhang to come to her school instead. The next day, Zhang visits Wu Xingxin's school and lets out a scream when he sees the teacher. She is the same drunk woman he had saved and spent the night with. She turns towards him somberly and asks him to be quiet when she, too, almost chokes on her spit and fumbles as she introduces herself as Wu Xingxin's homeroom teacher. Su, Zhang introduces himself as Wu Xingxin's brother, clears the misunderstanding about the kidnapping, and tells Su that he took Wu Xingxin with him. He is then made to wait till Wang Yang's dad arrives. Mr. Yang apologizes on behalf of his son and pleads with Su not to expel him. Just then, Mr. and Mrs. Gu arrive and demand answers for their son's injuries. The vice principal apologizes and assures that nothing of this sort will happen again. He then turns to Su and, in a stern voice, asks her to explain what mess her students created. Having heard enough about her methods of educating the class, Su assertively explains what happened is different. Su narrates the entire story, and Mrs. Gu accuses Mr. Yang of his son's behavior, and poor Mr. Yang apologizes profoundly for not raising Wang Yang properly. He asks for their forgiveness and offers to pay the medical expenses, but Mrs. Gu isn't satisfied and wants to send Wang Yang to jail. Wang Yang can't see his dad apologize like that and loses his temper. He calls Mrs. Gu an old hag and asks her not to talk to his dad like that. Mrs. Gu isn't fazed until she sees Wang Yang's sinister expression and realizes he's being serious about hurting her if she continues belittling his dad. So she gains her composure and says she'll deal with him later. She then turns to Wu Xingxin and mocks her, calling her names for being a gold digger and seducing her son. She warns her to stay away from her son and comments on her social stature. But when she threatens to tear her face and leave her body to rot on the streets, Zhang catches hold of her tongue and threatens to rip it off if she says anything else to Wu Xingxin. When Mr. Gu interferes, Zhang pins him on the wall using his foot and threatens dire consequences if they don't leave immediately. Mr. Gu utters a few words under his breath when Mrs. Gu calls the police as she has some connections, but Zhang couldn't care less. Wang Yang is baffled at Zhang's audacious behavior and asks Wu Xingxin if her brother is deliberately trying to get himself in trouble. But Wu Xingxin looks confident and says Zhang is nothing like ordinary people. Just then, Zhang calls Song Yi and narrates the whole incident. He also tells him about the police being called on him, and after giving all the necessary details, he asks Song Yi to deal with the situation. Mrs. Gu smirks as she knows what awaits Jiang once the police arrive and starts demeaning him. But a ringtone interrupts her. It is Mr. Gu's phone, and he gets a call from the district head. The official begins yelling at Mr. Gu for abusing his rank in the education board and trying to get a student expelled. The official then asks him to apologize to Jiang and tells him that Jiang has ties with the Tandu and Gusu underworld, and they don't want any trouble as the elections are nearing. He is also asked to send his resignation letter. Mr. Gu soon hangs up, turns toward Jiang, addresses him as Mr. Jiang, and apologizes for his wife and son's behavior. He assures him they will never cause any trouble again. Mr. Gu also promises that his son will not harass Wu Xingxin, and they will transfer him to a different school immediately. Jiang lets them go, and soon Mr. Yang asks permission to leave as he has work to attend. He also promises to make Wang Yang reflect on his mistake and will try to compensate the school. As Wang Yang leaves, Jiang hands him a card with a number and tells him that if he ever gets in trouble or gets expelled, he needs to call the number, and the person will give him a job and keep him well fed. Wang Yang thanks him before leaving. After everybody leaves, Su asks Jiang about his identity, because what she witnessed is not something an ordinary person can do. One has to be affluent to pull off this kind of an act, but Jiang brushes away the questions, saying he is just a businessman, a librarian, a playwright, and an author. Su tells him that her husband knows Mr. Gu, and he is not someone who can be easily swayed by money. Jiang asks for her husband's name, but when she refuses, Jiang clasps her face and declares he is now her husband after they spent the night together the other day, and her ex-husband can now wear a green hat. Su is irked by Jiang's audacity, and she kicks him hard to get him away from her. But Jiang is adamant and asks her to behave or he'll make her regret it. He then pulls her by her arm and asks if she's willing to go out with him now that she is not pregnant. Su yells at him to let him go and says if she knew this would happen, she would have never considered someone like him. Meanwhile, Wu Xingxin stands there, clueless about what is happening between the two. Jiang teases her till Su asks him to get out. Jiang laughs and walks out, and before leaving, he instructs Wu Xingxin not to create trouble anymore. Wu Xingxin starts asking Su all sorts of questions, and Su can't handle the embarrassment. She sends Wu Xingxin to her class and asks her to take care of her brother, because she feels he was dropped on his head when he was young. She also wonders how Wu Xingxin and Jiang are related. Meanwhile, while walking on the street, Jiang sneezes and wonders if someone is bad-mouthing him. Just then, his phone rings, and it is from Wang, who calls him immediately as it is an emergency. He explains that as per Zhao Yi's plan, he has arranged a banquet for Jiang. However, the reason will be explained later, and he asks Jiang to dress up, and he will send someone to pick him up. Jiang cannot help but feel dread. Jiang soon reaches a lavish banquet, where Wang introduces Jiang to Director Deng as a replacement for Zhao Yi, who couldn't attend owing to his poor health. It comes as a surprise to both Deng and Jiang, and Deng regrets calling Zhao Yi's successor a kid. Deng quickly gains his composure and welcomes him with confidence while Jiang is busy in his web of thoughts. He wonders if this is all true and if something really happened to Zhao Yi. Wang praises Jiang immensely and even calls him a real dragon among people. Deng offers to have drinks with them, but Wang politely declines on account of discussing important matters with other important people. After the party, Jiang questions Wang what the party was all about. He couldn't help but notice how weird Wang was acting, and also he made sure to introduce Jiang to all the important people at the party. Wang tells him not to ask many questions, as it is not the right place to discuss such matters. He promises to explain everything later and asks him to rest for the night. They'll pick Jiang up the next day. But Jiang is curious, so Wang takes Jiang to Zhao Yi's place. There, Jiang is astonished to see Zhao Yi in such a frail condition. Zhao Yi coughs and, upon asking, reveals that he might not live for long, as he shows his hand covered in blood. Zhao Yi says he's accepted his fate after the doctor gave him 3 months to live. However, he has a few regrets, but nothing much to worry about. He trusts Jiang's ability that he will carry forward his legacy. Jiang wants to help find a cure, but Zhao Yi says it is useless as it doesn't have a treatment. It has been suffering for a decade now, and famous doctors haven't been able to find a cure. But surprisingly, he feels calm, except for one matter. Wang has been following him for a long time, taking care of Zhao Yi's business, and even though he is strong enough to fight his battles, there are some forces in the city that can topple him. And once he's gone, such forces will start moving to destroy everything he created and worked for. Jiang came as a blessing to him, and after he learned about his feats, Zhao Yi was sure Jiang was the man destined to continue his legacy. He then reveals he has a daughter in the US and wishes to see her one last time before he's gone. Wang shows Jiang a picture of Zhao Hong, Zhao Yi's daughter, and says he would have gone to find her himself, but there will be no one to take care of Zhao Yi then. He also says if something happens to him, Jiang is expected to take care of Zhao Hong. Jiang assures he will always be there to help not only Zhao Hong but also Wang if he ever gets in trouble. Jiang declares he'll honor the promise when the time comes and lights the picture on fire. Zhao Yi then tells him the lessons he learned during his time in the underworld and warns him that a single man cannot compete an army. So making allies and not offending stronger people will help him stay on top. Wang adds that Zhao Yi was a first-class master in wushu in his younger days, and the national martial arts world respected him. Zhao Yi takes a somber tone and tells him about the four overlords of the underworld: the Dragon Emperor, like King Di, Hebei's Vanguard, Wu Tangxin, Southern Tiger, Mao Chengshan, and the Northeast King, Nalan Zong. Zhao Yi apologizes for getting Jiang involved and bringing him under the limelight after he is declared the successor of Zhao Yi. He admits he was surprised when Jiang came back safely after meeting Hebei's overlord, Wu Tangxin. He speculates he must have seen something in Jiang to let him go, or because he is still alive, and Wu Tangxin would have been subjected to his repercussions if he harmed Jiang. But one cannot be sure, and it could be that he's just playing with Jiang, waiting for the right time to strike. However, this is not the important part. Zhao Yi reveals that Jiang must be weary of this one man and must not approach him at any point of time in his life. The man is Xichang Sheng. Zhao Yi still remembers the day he met Xichang. It was during his peak years and during his brief period of hesitation, while pointing his gun at him, that Xichang took control and crippled Zhao Yi. Zhao Yi still regrets facing the man head-on. Once Jiang returns home from Zhao Yi's place, he can't stop thinking about how he can help Zhao Yi, so he decides to ask the system for an update on Zhao Yi's health. The system, however, pulls Jiang in and takes him to a digital space, where he meets his old self. The old Jiang asks him to worship him as he introduces himself as the system. New Jiang feels he's dreaming, but old Jiang is quick to remind him that with an updated version, he can create things and, in a snap of a finger, creates a table and chairs for them to sit on. New Jiang asks how many points he will require to upgrade his powers so he can cure Zhao Yi. The old Jiang says it will cost him 120,000 points, which is cheap. While Zhao Yi's body is strong due to practicing martial arts, but his internal organs are rotting, and his condition worsens every day. Old Jiang says they need a resurrection method. Finding no other way, the new Jiang decides to give it a shot. Since he doesn't have that many coins, old Jiang suggests gambling and brings out the slot machine. After pulling the lever multiple times and still not landing on a useful reward, Jiang gets frustrated and curses loudly. Finally giving up, new Jiang plops on the floor and asks old Jiang for anything that can extend Zhao Yi's life in exchange for his prestige points. Old Jiang looks in the store and tells him about the Seed of Life for 3,200 points that can increase the lifespan of the consumer by 1 year. New Jiang thinks of buying one every year, but old Jiang puts a rest to his thoughts by telling him the seed can only be used once. New Jiang buys it anyways. Back at his residence, Jiang gets a call from Xiao Wang, telling him about the money transfer to his account after the success of a movie he made and the business running smoothly, but the people from Hebei pulled out of the business for unknown reasons. He shares the idea of opening an import-export business, and Jiang gives him the green light, provided everything is done legally. After the call, Jiang wonders what the Hebei overlord is up to. He then decides to go out and greets Yao at the entrance. Yao immediately unbuttons her shirt enough to give a good glimpse of her bosom, and in a mellifluous voice, calls him her sweet baby boss. But Jiang is not falling for her cheap tricks and startles her by asking her to help him spend $900 million. Yao stands stunned, and once the figure settles in her brain, she screams and asks him if he has dealt with illegal substances. Jiang tells her matter-of-factly that he did some foreign trading with a friend in Gusu City. Ya suddenly pushes him, making him sit on the sofa, and straddles him, claiming all his assets. But Jiang pushes her off of him, and Yo calls him mean for rejecting her for the umpteenth time. She proposes that Jiang become one of the real estate investors with Boss Ma. Jiang finds the offer appealing and calls Boss Ma. As he explains how one of his partners vanished, incurring a loss and leaving him in debt, Jiang struggles to keep Yo off of him. She doesn't back off even as Jiang discusses such an important matter. Jiang agrees to give him $800 million, relieving Bosma of a considerable burden. He assures the income will be tripled as the project is very lucrative. Jiang has had enough of Yao slithering on him like a snake, so he clasps her head and lifts her off, making her squirm in pain. Jiang is about to hang up when Yao whispers in his ear, cursing him that he'll never find a wife. Jiang excuses himself, promising to discuss the details later, and then proceeds to tie Yao up. He then drags her by her collar as she cries, thinking about the trouble that awaits her. The real estate investment was a success, and Jiang gave the money to Song Yi to acquire an e-commerce company, which was named Imperial Consortium. The other company that was under Jiang was also renamed Imperial. Bosma's real estate company also changed its name to Imperial Real Estate. Jiang was made the chairman of the board. China was shocked by the emergence of a group of small industries, and more shocking was that a 20-year-old Jiang was leading the company. Even Jiang was surprised at the company's humongous growth. One day he gets a call from Song Yi, and Song Yi chides him for still working as a librarian, but Jiang argues that he doesn't have anything else to do as Yao and Song Yi handle all the work. Song Yi changes the topic and asks him to stay at school as he is planning to come and wants Jiang to meet someone. Just as he gets off the phone, Lin walks behind him and asks him where he has been the entire week. His family was worried about him because nobody could reach him. She then hands him a picture of a girl that Jiang's mom asked Lin to pass on to Jiang. His mom wants him to go on a blind date with the woman in the photograph. Lin pouts as she talks about the girl, and Jiang notices it. Hiding his smirk, he tells Lin he is not into dating and says he won't go. When Lin tells him his mom has been working hard to arrange the meeting, Jiang says he'll convince his mom by saying he's already seeing someone. Lin hesitates a bit before asking if he has someone in mind, and he takes her name because his mom has been fond of Lin since childhood and will be thrilled when she'll come to know. Lin blushes hard and asks who would want to be his girlfriend. She is still in a frenzy when Jiang sees Song Yi and tells Lin he'll be leaving, but she is too occupied by her thoughts and blabbering things about their dating. The two men stare at her, clueless as to what is happening to her. They leave her be and walk out into the street, where Wang Yang greets Jiang and asks him if he missed him. Jiang has an intense look in his eyes before he asks Song Yi who the guy is. Wang Yang can't believe Jiang has already forgotten him. He yells out his name, but Jiang prefers to call him twerp. Jiang doesn't stop there and calls him an idiot for getting expelled just 4 days after Jiang had visited the school. Song Yi tells Jiang that Wang Yang is his new driver, baffling Jiang. But Song Yi assures him the kid is 18 and has recently got his license. Jiang doesn't get a say in it, and just like that, Wang Yang becomes his driver. Before leaving, Song Yi tells Jiang that he trained Wang Yang to become adept at martial arts and knows the streets very well. Wang Yang stopped listening to their conversation long ago as his eyes were glued to Jiang's car. He gets excited and calls Jiang Big Brother, asking him if he can take the car for a spin. He also asks about Wu Xingxin, but soon gets stepped on by Jiang, who asks him to stay away from her. He also instructs him to call him boss. Wang Yang then relays the message that the Wu brothers have invited him to dinner at Marriott Hotel. Jiang takes Wang Yang shopping with him, and they enter the hotel looking debonair. The Wu brothers greet Jiang and ask about the kid. Jiang warns them not to think less of the kid as they'll be surprised by his capabilities. They soon start drinking, and the brothers flatter Jiang by bringing up his fight with Wu Tansen and how Jiang won the fight. Jiang makes them stop their sycophancy and asks if they need something from him. The brothers cut the chase and tell him they have run into trouble. They had recently invested in a TV series whose actress, Lulu, had some ideas to make their company's business more lucrative. But before they could talk further, she was kidnapped by someone in the north. And when they sent their men to retrieve her, 20 of his men came back dead or gravely injured. They have hired men to tackle the Wu brothers' men, and they can't keep up if the struggle continues, as the thugs intend to keep Lulu for the next 3 months. They can't afford to lose her, and ask Jiang to help them get her back. Jiang asks them who these people are, and the brothers tell him they are people of the Naolin group. Jiang's face turns serious, and he chides the brothers for trying to make him a scapegoat. But the brother denies any connection of those thugs with Master Naolin. Instead, they're just some people on the side of the Ice City. They plead with Jiang to help them and promise proportionate compensation. Jiang thinks for some time before asking Wang Yang to call Tanzong Min. Once Tanzong recognizes it is Jiang, he cheerfully greets him and catches up from the last time they left after their spar. Zhang reciprocates and then asks and explains the reason for calling and asks if he can help with the matter in the Ice City. Zhang gives Tanzong a name, Tiger Ronking, and Tanzong seems to know the guy and the fact that many lives were lost in the rivalry. He assures John to leave the matter to him as he, too, is unhappy with the guy making a fuss under his master, Nalan's grace. Zhang thanks Tanzong for his help and tells him to call him for any help he needs ever in his life. Tanzong offers to take Zhang to meet his master the next time he stops by and soon hangs up. Zhang tells the Wu brothers their issue has been resolved, and Ice City won't bother them again. Just then, Wu Zhang gets a call from Tiger Ronking, who apologizes profoundly for bothering them and pleads with him to let Zhang know they will not pose any problem and are even ready to compensate. Since Zhang's work is done, he gets ready to leave, but Wu Zhang insists he accompanies them to a nightclub. Zhang excuses himself to go to the washroom, while the others make their way to the VIP lounge. As he's walking towards the restroom, Zhang passes by a familiar face. He asks her to turn around, but the girl dashes and Zhang chases her. She would have made it away if her ankle didn't twist, and Zhang catches up, asking Wu Xingxin what on earth she's doing in the nightclub. Wu Xingxin struggles to speak, but Zhang wraps his coat around her and chides her for being there past her curfew time and wearing inappropriate clothing. Suddenly, Wu Xingxin bursts into tears and tells him she has no money. Zhang is surprised and realizes he must have forgotten to give her the month's allowance owing to his busy schedule, but he still says she should have called him. When she doesn't stop crying, Zhang admits it was his fault and gives her his credit card for the future so she never has to worry about money. He then asks her to pack her things as he prepares to send for someone to drive her home safely, but someone's voice distracts him. A group of middle-aged men approach them and address Wu Xingxin, teasing her for running away from them. Zhang asks Wu Xingxin if these men were harassing her, and she tells him the guys wanted her to have drinks with them and probably take advantage of her, so she ran. The guys don't back off and continue teasing and calling Wu Xingxin to entertain them, but Zhang kicks one of the guys before he can grab Wu Xingxin. The other guys recognize seeing Zhang with Wu Zhang and back off, but Zhang is not done with the chubby guy who tried to grab Wu Xingxin. Zhang is ready to smash his face to a pulp and break his bones, but 3 men attack him before he could lay hands on the chubby guy. Wang Yang appears out of nowhere and injures the 3 attack with one stroke of his knife, apologizing for being late. He asks Zhang if he should eliminate all those men. Wang Yang single-handedly beats the goons while Wu Xingxin and Zhang stand by and watch. Suddenly, someone appears from the shadows, and the chubby man addresses him as Zhao Qi, asking him to finish the brats off. Wang Yang offers to take care of him, but is astonished when Zhao Qi breaks Wang Yang's blade. Zhang is impressed and thinks the kid's talent is being wasted in such a place. Wang Yang has a hard time keeping up and questions Zhao Qi if he would let people harass a woman in their nightclub. But Zhao Qi shows no concern and says his job is to beat anybody causing trouble to a pulp. Wang Yang takes a serious stance when he realizes talking will not help and gives a final warning. In the turn of events, Wang Yang is seriously injured in the fight and coughs up blood. The bat Zhao Qi carries is heavier than it seems and has damaged his internals from the impact. Wu Xingxin gasps as she sees Wang Yang cough blood, but Zhang can't hold in his laughter seeing the Torp Song Yi trained to get beat up like that. Suddenly Zhao Qi subdues Wang Yang and is about to land the final blow on his head when Zhang grabs Zhao Qi's arm and hurls him in the air before holding his body upside down. Zhang threatens to smash his head, but that single move is enough to intimidate Zhao Qi, and he accepts his defeat. Zhang is annoyed it finished before it even started, and he asks Wang Yang to get up as they are leaving. But Wang Yang doesn't get up even after Zhang asks him to because he is disheartened after he loses the fight. He cannot accept defeat and lets out a frustrated sigh. But Zhang reminds him that people who keep dwelling on a past mistake never get better. One needs to learn from it. Zhang hands Wang Yang a lollipop to cheer him up, and Wang Yang promises he'll never lose a fight again. Soon the owner of the nightclub reaches the scene and disperses the crowd by offering free drinks. He then questions his staff and yells at Zhao Qi for messing things up, but gets interrupted by Wu Zhang, who threatens to smash the place to pieces if he continues disrespecting Zhang like that. The owner stands still, too stunned to move, when he realizes Zhang is the underworld overlord. At that moment, Mr. Dewu enters and tells the owner that Zhang is a very important guest, making the owner apologize immediately and show deference. Zhang asks Wang Yang to drop Wu Xingxin home. As the two drive home, Wu Xingxin asks Wang Yang why he's hanging out with Zhang. Wang Yang tells her how Jiang gave him a job as his driver after he got suspended from school. Wu Xingxin hesitates as she confesses Jiang is not really her brother. Wang Yang doesn't look surprised and says he learned about it while training under Song Yi. Wu Xingxin reveals that Jiang has greatly helped her and her mother and treats her like his own sister. Wang Yang agrees that Jiang is very kind and treats his people with dignity and respect. He also realized how naive he was back then and pursued Wu Xingxin only because he was infatuated with her beauty. But he has learned a lot since, and he asks her not to worry about her mother and promises to keep it a secret and help her whenever she needs it. Wu Xingxin thanks Wang Yang as this is the first time they ever had a real conversation. Back at the nightclub, Wu Zong hurdles the owner and his men in a private room, where he asks Jiang how he will punish them for disrespecting him. Jiang asks Zhao Qi what he would do in such a situation, to which Zhao Qi grabs his bat and swings it, shocking everybody. The owner calls his move stupid, but he ends up hitting his left arm, breaking it. Jiang is impressed by Zhao Qi's skills and offers him a job, while he asks the owner to shut the place after how he was treated. As for the chubby guy, Jiang is particularly annoyed by him because he pursued Wu Xingxin, and above that, he threatens that if something happens to him, his brother, the deputy director of the Lower East Side Police Department, will not leave them. Infuriated by his audacious behavior, Jiang asks Wu Tian to cut off his private parts, as Wu Tian suggested. Jiang has had enough for the day and leaves, wondering what Wu Zhong has arranged for him. He has a nosebleed when he sees a stunning woman sitting on his bed waiting for him, and soon one thing leads to another. The next morning, Jiang leaves before the woman wakes up, and outside of the hall, he is greeted by two men, who hand in the keys and some documents. They tell him the villa's worth $300 million in Pearl Park, a prime land, is a gift from the Wu brothers. The villas are renovated and ready to move in for him. Jiang asks the men to relay his gratitude to the Wu brothers and heads back on his own. After getting a change of clothes, he heads to the library to read books and learn everything he can about the world using his memory cheat ability. Once he's done for the day, he leaves but is stopped by Lin outside school. Jiang grabs her hand, and before she knows it, she's sitting beside him in his car, and Wang Yang drives them to the location of the villas. The villas are more than they could have imagined, with covered parking space, numerous spare rooms and guest rooms, private bars, recreational room, a cinema, a gym, and indoor and outdoor pools are some of the facilities among a plethora of others available in the area. Lin is flabbergasted when she hears the price, but Jiang assures her he is rich. He says his future wife is going to live there, so he can't afford to go cheap, making Lin blush. Jiang also plans to hire maids, workers, drivers, and security on whom he can rely, but then thinks Wang Yang can handle all these duties. Just then, his phone rings, and the editor of Swift Culture Press, the company that published Jiang's work, tells him that his book is listed in all major bookstores around China, and they were wondering if he could join in a signing event for the opening. Jiang outrightly declines because he thinks it is too embarrassing but ends up giving in when the editor persuades him. On the day of the opening, a crowd has already started to form from the wee hours of the day. Jiang is nervous and shivers as the old Jiang appears and asks if he is busy. The old Jiang tells him he sold 3.2 billion copies in the first week, but the new Jiang says he has nothing to do with it and wouldn't want his pictures or personal information anywhere in the book, as it wouldn't affect his prestige points. The old Jiang says he is wrong about that and explains that every 10,000 clicks on the web novel earn him 1 prestige point, and every hard copy of the book sold earns him 0.01 point, and to date, he has accumulated more than 32,000 prestige points. Old Jiang then turns to leave and opens the portal, but before leaving, he advises new Jiang to publish more such books. Jiang takes a shower and strategizes how to earn more points, but the entire thing gets him stressed, so he decides to take some time off and go out to eat. He chooses to have street food and drools at the mere thought. And once he finds a place, he orders lots of dishes and starts eating when the waitresses come with the beer. One of the waitresses is Wu Xingxin, and she freezes upon seeing Jiang, but quickly composes herself and tries to run. But it is too late as Jiang sees her and catches hold of her. He asks her what her excuse is this time, and she says she is afraid to spend too much money. Jiang pulls her cheek hard and asks her to come with him. Wu Xingxin innocently asks if he's taking her to his house, but he smacks her on her head and says he's sending her back to her house. He asks her to quit her job immediately, reminding her of her school the next day, and puts a curfew time on her. Wu Xingxin is nervous as she walks Jiang to her home. She doesn't know if Jiang is angry or just embarrassed by her, and after walking in silence for a while, they reach an apartment. An old couple is sitting outside when they see Wuxingxin come back and talk to her, asking about the man accompanying her. She introduces Jiang as her professor, and suddenly Jiang finds himself surrounded by neighbors who shower him with all sorts of compliments and comments about how pitiful Wuxingxin's situation is. Wuxingxin, however, drags Jiang away from the crowd, excusing herself owing to some important work. She takes him to a more desolate-looking apartment, and Jiang offers to let her and her mother live in one of his mansions as he doesn't like her apartment. But Wuxingxin refuses politely. Just then, Jiang hears some men asking one of their members to hurry as they're marking it. Jiang asks Wuxingxin what a demolition crew is doing there, but Wuxingxin doesn't know. Jiang lets it go, thinking Wuxingxin can move into one of his mansions if the house is demolished. As they are walking, one of the crew members comments on Wuxingxin, but Jiang threatens him to watch his mouth. Another crew member steps in and says it was a joke. Wuxingxin tries to calm down the situation and pulls Jiang to get out of there, but when they use profanities and call Wuxingxin a derogatory name, the name of a joke, Jiang turns back and lands a solid punch on one of the man's face, sending him flying. The other members warn Jiang about being outnumbered, but Jiang is in no mood to back down. Jiang thinks if he shows the guys any mercy, they may create problems for Wuxingxin in the future, so he doesn't think twice before punching another guy and asking him which company sent them to tag the building at night. The man, now bleeding and bruised from the punch, says he shouldn't be messing with them and adds he shouldn't have offended the employees of the company like this. When Jiang asks him again, the man reveals they work for Imperial Real Estate, and Jiang is their boss who he doesn't want to offend. Jiang lets out a sigh and tells them he is Zhang Yi. The group stands, mouth agape at the revelation, and then apologizes for their behavior. They fear they'll be fired, but Jiang asks them to leave and see a doctor for the injured. He also says their medical bills will be compensated, bringing tears of joy to the gang's faces, and the matter settles down. Jiang turns to Wuxingxin and tells him the group works for his company, and the place will be demolished, so he offers to shift her to one of his 3-bedroom apartments. Wuxingxin finally agrees and reminds herself to pay back for his kindness in the future. As Jiang is about to leave, Wuxingxin gives him a peck on his cheek, and Jiang flicks her on her forehead. The next day, Jiang is busy reading in the library when a man approaches him and asks if he understands the content of the book he is reading. Jiang says he does and proceeds to appreciate the idea, but only in theory and not in practicality. The man agrees with Jiang's understanding of the philosophy, and the two strikes up a conversation. The man reveals he has been observing him read every day, and not just one but dozens of books. Jiang reveals he has a photographic memory, so he reads to remember the content vividly and use the knowledge wherever necessary. The man spots an economics book and asks Jiang's opinion on China and the world economy. Jiang's answer impresses the man so much that he suggests Jiang should be a lecturer instead of a librarian. He then introduces himself as Fang Tiandu, the president and dean of Tiandu University. Jiang realizes the man standing before him is a big deal, as he is the author of Domestic Authority on Economics, an influential person in the business circle, and has also served as the national advisor for the government. Many of China's government policies are written by him. Jiang immediately gets up from his seat and shakes hands with the man with many accolades. The dean cannot let such talents go to waste and appoints Jiang as the visiting professor at the university. Jiang is reluctant, but the dean very calmly threatens to expel Jiang from the university if he doesn't take the job. Jiang stands there, unable to comprehend that an older man has just scammed him. The following day, Jiang enters the class well prepared, and as soon as he walks in, Lin's friends pull her to ask if the new teacher is her cousin. Lin has a dumbfounded look when she sees Jiang on the podium, who then introduces himself. During the introduction, he spots Lin but stays unfazed. He soon starts the lecture, and even though he had said he doesn't have any experience in teaching, the students think otherwise because they find his teaching methods very polished and the concepts easy to follow. Jiang gracefully finishes his lecture and closes the class for the day to the admiration of his students who deem him competent. One of the male students asks him not to end the lecture immediately, but to elaborate on another topic, but he hurriedly leaves the class with a promise to do that in the next class. Jiang exits the class in the wake of comments from both male and female students gushing over his competence and wondering about what he does in his free time. The girls form groups to discuss his looks and contest for his attention, which embarrasses Lin Wan especially because she was mentioned in the discussion by one of the girls. Jung arrives home, totally exhausted from the day's work, and changes into his housewear as he casually drinks a bottle of water by the refrigerator. Later, Jung learns that a student secretly recorded the details of his class and posted it on the internet, and the video has attracted a lot of attention from experts in the economic industry who are full of praise for his knowledge in financial-related topics. The system rewards those with prestige, and since Jang has now attained a level of prestige from the attention his lecture has been receiving, the system rewards him with 1,000 prestige points because of his newly found popularity in the economic sector. Jang seems to be having a conversation with his inner person as a part of him disagrees with the lecturing proposition and the other agrees. Jang also learns that the class earned him 40 points per person, which is much higher than most professions, and somehow gets convinced to take 2 classes per week, and he reluctantly agrees to it. After his next class, he receives a surprise call from Zhao Wuji. Jung excitedly answers the calls and tells him that he is a visiting professor at the university. Zhao goes straight to the point by asking him to take a vacation to accompany him to Longquan, because they need to see someone useful to Zhang's future. Zhang meets with Zhao Wuji and sees that his health is not getting any better, and he is slowly becoming worse in his wheelchair. Zhang has been waiting for a suitable reason before giving Zhao the life of Dan, but resolves to give him at that moment since his health is worsening. Zhang kneels in front of Zhao's wheelchair and explains that the life of Dan is a temporary cure, which can give Zhao good health for only a year before he returns to his previous self. He tells Zhao and his companion, Wang, that the life of Dan is the last product from his master, and it cannot be made again. Zhang lies to them that he asked his master the last time they met, and he assured him that the life Dan can suppress Zhao's illness. Zhao thanks Zhang and tells him that he is ready to live a good life for a year, which is enough for him to do whatever he likes. Zhang explains how Life Dan works and tells him that for a full year, all his injuries and health issues will be cured, but after then, the effect of Life Dan will weigh off and he agrees. He gives Zhao the Life Dan to swallow and instantly, he began to feel changes in his body, and he sprang up from his wheelchair to move around. He leads Zhang out for their journey to Lingquan and orders a bottle of wine because he has been wanting to drink one. Zhang notices that Zhao's mood has considerably improved as he chats away during the flight and directs the attendant to run errands for him. At their destination, they are received by Director's son and other people who are overexcited to meet them. Zhang tries to understand the relationship between Zhao and the men as he does not know him to associate with a lot of people except Wu Tangxi. Zhao makes the introduction between Zhang and Director's son. Director's son begins to give them precautions about the city. Zhao says nice things about Director's son and how important he is to Zhang on their way out of the airport, but Director's son tries to behave humble by telling Zhang that he is only an ordinary man in the city. He gives Zhang his card to contact him whenever he needs something and brings back his attention to Zhao. He asks him about his health and how he managed to be cured after the best doctors tried to heal him without a breakthrough. Zhao tells him that Zhang is responsible for his healing and Director's son tells him that he must be very talented. He begs Zhang to also examine him because he has been down with constant headaches. Zhang tries to tell him that he is not very good with medicine, but the man thinks that he is modest and waves off the comment. Without experiencing any traffic, they arrive at the Castle Peak Villa to see the old man whom Director's son works for. Zhang takes note of his environment and remembers from history that the castle is not a place for random people, and it is owned by Meng Zhongzheng, who was famous in China's military and political circle, alongside Zhao Wuji's father, who was his subordinate. Inside the castle, the old man offers them a seat while Zhang continues his assessment of the man and his property. The old man begins to interact with them, and he informs Zhao that he heard of his illness and thought that Zhao would possibly die before him. He expresses his anger at the fact that Zhao did not come to him while he was sick. Zhao tells him that he has a year more to live because of Zhang, whom he constantly refers to as his brother. The old man tells Zhao that 1 year is not good enough because he promised his father that he would take care of him like his grandson. Therefore, he will call someone to treat him. Zhao insists and tells him to give his inheritance to Zhang because he trusts him. The old man decides to indulge Zhang by asking him if he can save his grandson Zhao. Zhang tells him that his uncle can do it, though his methods are questionable. Though he calmly talks and interacts with them, Zhang is angry within himself because he does not have the required prestige points to save him. The old man begs Jiang to try and vows that he will be greatly rewarded if he can save Zhao, and even if he cannot fully save him, he will live by the agreement. They begin to argue among themselves, and the old man gets mad at Zhao because he is 40, but he does not always act like his age. The old man dismisses everyone because he is tired and tells them to look around the place and rest so that later they will revisit the issue. As they walk out, he calls them back and cautions them to be careful with the people they associate with, because his influence may not be enough to save them from some evil powers around Linquan. Director Sun explains that the old man is referring to a troublesome kid who has become a terror within the place, because the old man named a different heir. He begs John to avenge him and beat up the kid if he can, because he has influenced his son negatively, which he does not like. Jiang thinks that he has entered into a bad situation, but he keeps his cool and listens to everything Director Sun and Wine told him. As they continued walking, the troublesome Meng Huang that they were talking about showed up with threats for Wang. Wang is unable to answer or confront him because he has an embarrassing video about him that he can post on YouTube to destroy him and his career in martial arts. Director Sun quickly takes Wang away to avoid further embarrassment and leaves Jian with the troublesome Meng Huang. Jiang is very uncomfortable with him because of the way he continuously tries to touch him while talking to him. Meng Huang walks Jiang to his car and Jiang cringes at the unnecessarily vain plate number. Meng Huang tells him not to complain and rather feel worthy to ride in his exotic car, because everyone in the city knows that the car belongs to him, which is a form of honor. He tells Jiang that even though he hates Zhao, he will make Jiang have fun and will not punish him with hatred. He fails to notice that Jiang is not comfortable with everything he is doing, especially his frequent touch. Meng Huang continues to ramble on and on about the old man and how he is only accommodating Jiang in his city because he has promised to be nice to him. He sees Jiang as a village boy who is not up to his standard as a city boy, and this amuses Jiang, but he says nothing to him. Instead, he realizes why Zhao told him to show no mercy to him. On the way to their destination, Meng Huang badmouths Zhao and tells Jiang not to associate with him anymore as he is of no use. He tells him to be close to his grandfather, the old man who will in turn reward him with anything he wants. Jiang is angry at the statement against Zhao, and Meng Huang challenges him to a fight, telling him that he cannot do anything to him because he owns the city. They arrive at a hangout spot to meet other people their age, both boys and girls who are already speculating to see Meng Huang's new friend. Jiang drags him out of the car and begins to beat him. Meng Huang struggles to free himself while shouting that even the old man does not beat him, but Jiang does not let go. Meng Huang's friends rose with bottles to fight Jiang on his behalf, but they only stood at a distance to threaten Jiang. He orders them to retaliate on his behalf, but Jiang dodges them. All hell broke loose with Meng Huang, who grew red with anger at Jiang's audacity in his city. He tells Jiang that Zhao is only an adopted grandson, but he is the real grandson of the old man, so he should be treated with respect. Jiang angrily shuts him up and tells him that he is only a sad little boy who does not know the true meaning of hardship, and if he cannot face off with him, he should get someone to do that, or else he would keep receiving the beating. The girls that were initially waiting for Meng Huang began to fawn over Jiang and his courage to confront Meng Huang, which further annoys him. He rushes away to his car to get a gun, but Jiang is unfazed by the action. Rather, he continues to allow the girls to distract him. Meng Huang rushes back with threats to shoot Jiang, and Jiang taunts him by calling him gay because of his pink hair and the way he was constantly touching Jiang as he talked. This pisses off Meng Huang, and he becomes angry again. Jiang tells him that he cannot shoot the gun and that he is only showing off. He taunts him to prove that he is not gay by looking at the girls, and while he does that, Jiang snatches the gun from him and Meng Huang begins to beg him. Meng Huang promises to take him as his brother and vows not to cause trouble anymore. He tries to turn everything into a joke, that it is their way of welcoming people to Linquan, and he was not trying to make trouble in any way. Meng Huang quickly announces to everyone present that Jiang is his brother and should be treated with the utmost respect. The girls began to argue among themselves over who should have his attention or not. As they were going to eat, Jiang remained vigilant in case Meng Huang had other tricks up his sleeves to play. One of the girls offers him food as he prepares to dig in. Meng Huang calls him to watch out. Jiang understands that Meng Huang may try to double-cross him, so he spent 10 prestige points to check the food and discover that the wine was drugged before he was given, but he pretended not to know. Now, he sees men with sticks and some others dressed in army uniforms approaching him, but he continues to act nonchalantly while making plans on how to deal with them in his mind. Manhwa saunters to Jiang's front with pride to announce that he underestimated him earlier, which was a mistake, but he has now drugged him and will take his revenge. Manhwa instructs Jiang to fall at his feet and beg because he has the place surrounded by 70 to 80 men and the drugs will soon kick in to make him weak, but he will be saved if he grovels at his feet. Manhwa went all out in preparing his revenge, including the poisoned wine, the thugs and some military men, in case the first two did not work out. The thugs rush towards Jiang to attack him in hopes that they will be able to impress Manhwa and gain favors from him. The military men stand to the side to observe the fight and wonder if the thugs will be any match for Jiang. The military boys tell their master that the thugs can handle Jiang and they will not need to intervene in the action. Manhwa went through a lot of trouble to get the military guys into the open for his intentions, but the leader of the military guys began to consider a retreat with the way Jiang was handling the thugs in front of him. By the way, the girls cheer for Jiang as he fights his way through the thugs. Manhwa grew angry that after all he had to go through to bring the military guys, they had refused to fight for him. He began to insult them, and they threatened to report him to their higher authority who will deal with him regardless of his family. One of the soldiers moves closer to Manhwa and whispers to him that Jiang has the strength to send everyone on his path to the hospital, including Manhwa, so to avoid that embarrassment, he should consider retreating. As they are watching him, they observe that he is in the class of the national masters, and to fight against those kinds of people, 4 helicopters and 20 snipers before they can win him. The military boss reveals that only a handful of people in the whole country can compete with Jiang's skills, and even then, with his abilities, he is a high step master. There are only about 3 such people. Each one is hidden and mysterious, and cannot be seen easily. The soldiers start to make fun of Manhwa that he has revealed the 4th person with such abilities, and that makes him a lucky person who could easily win a lottery game if he tried with such luck. Manhwa hugs Jiang and begins to beg him for pardon again, that his previous attempt was also a joke. But Jiang was not having it. He decides to teach him a lesson so that he will not become worse when he grows up. Meanwhile, the girls are still in a corner begging for his attention, and wondering why he is ignoring them even though they are very attractive. Jiang pulls Manhwa closer and gives him a stern warning to stop trying him in any way, because he will no longer take it. He tells him that he has only decided to overlook his wrongdoings because of the old man, and not because of Manhwa himself. As he talks to him, Manhwa barely pays attention to all he is being told, because he is busy thinking about whether he is straight or not. After the warning, he behaves like a humble person and makes a promise to Jiang that he will no longer be troublesome. Captain Yang steps forward and introduces himself to Jiang as the head of the Red Mach Army. Jiang introduces himself as a professor at Tiandu University to Captain Yang, and Manhwa wonders when he became a professor because he works for Zhao Wuji. The captain tells Jiang that since he is Zhou's protege, he hopes to work with him in future. He tells Jiang that they have heard of him from different people within his city, which is not pleasing to Jiang. Captain Yang tells him that they should have dinner together later as he needs to report back to base at the moment, so that they will get to know each other better. Their conversation annoys Manhwa, and he accuses Captain Yang of trying to take his brother away. Captain Yang tells Manhwa that he is going to let everyone know that he is a coward, and that nobody will work for him or agree to wine and dine with him anymore. After he left with his group, Jiang asks Manhwa about him, and Manhwa tells him that he is the hidden son of the emperor, and an important person within the place. Captain Yang is the youngest and brightest person in the military, and Manhwa tells Jiang that in the future he will be a force to reckon with since he already has so much achievement. Manhwa explains Captain Yang's ancestry to Jiang and why he is seen as someone of great importance, and Jiang compares the information with what he learned from Zhao. After waiting for Jiang's attention without getting it, the girls cut into the conversation, telling Manhwa that it is now their turn to speak with Jiang. The girls offered to take him to a luxurious hotel with a good place for him to eat and relax, and he follows them. Manhwa is upset that Jiang did not take his car, but he is taking Director Sun Sun's car, and stomps away angrily. On the way to the hotel, the system upgrades Jiang with 100,000 prestige points and performs new upgrades for him. The system informs Jiang that there is a new mission and it involves important details. The mission is named King of Heaven with a reward of 300 points or an advance free draw converted 3 times. However, if he fails the mission, 300 prestige points will be deducted, and if he does not meet the requirement he will face a heavy penalty, and his abilities will be decreased. If the penalty is not enough, his life will be decreased by 10,000 points per year. The mission is to take about a year, and it must include certain places. Jang confronts the system that the mission is too difficult, but the system tries to make him see the advantage of taking up the task. He tells Jang that his prestige points will be gained at a higher rate, and more people can contribute for him, which will make him faster. Jang tries to observe the weapons at his disposal for the mission, but they are different from the modern standard. He complains that the requirements of the mission are confusing and too much, because he cannot fight with swords in the modern age when he can use guns. The upgrade continues, and he obtains the mastery of gambling out of everything else that he could have been given, but he accepts it grudgingly. The girls wake Jang from his sleep as they arrive at their destination. Manhwa also comes and asks one of the followers named Dry if he prepared the hall, and he explains how they got other people to move away for them. Everyone tries to please Jang and get on his good side because of his new reputation. The other people they displaced from the hall came to confront Manhwa, and they get into a heated argument. Manhwa threatens them that he is the emperor of the city, and he has the backing of Zhao Wuji, but it does not scare the people. As they continued their argument, the southern tiger, Mao Chengshin, arrives and asks Manhwa to explain his last statement. The southern tiger from Xinjiang, Mao Chengshin, is the chief police officer at the government department, and Jang is in awe of him. Manhwa inwardly cringes at this mistake of making a statement that insulted the man. He refuses to admit it. Instead, he begs for more trouble by telling him that he said what he said because he does not think the southern tiger has any ability. If not, he would have defeated Zhao Wuji in their confrontation long ago. The men in the southern tiger's entourage become angry at Manhwa's audacity to speak to their boss in such a manner, but he holds them back and tells Manhwa that his issue with Zhao Wuji is not his business. The southern tiger informs Manhwa that he had earlier booked the room, therefore he has to use it. Jang, who has been watching the exchange, finally intervenes, and by telling the southern tiger that they are all reputable people and should not fight. Since they are already there, he tells the southern tiger to let them finish and leave, then he can have the place to himself or look for a new location. The southern tiger's men become angry once more at such audacity to challenge their boss and ask to know who he is. The southern tiger boasts that he has an elite force with him comprising of men from the police command and some other noble people who can easily take him up, but Jang does not look bothered by his rant. Instead, he calmly introduces himself as Jiang Bai of Taindu. On hearing this, the southern tiger tells him that he has been waiting for the opportunity to meet him, but they will continue another time and exits with his people. Jiang tells Manhwa not to jubilate, because the matter is not yet over but has just begun. He tells them that Zhao Wuji and the southern tiger had issues because his wife left him for Zhao since he wanted power more than her, and he is still out for revenge. After dining together, Durai takes Jang and everyone to a new club that just opened. He informs Jang that his friend specially brought girls from the nearby college for the opening ceremony, and Jang thanks him for the gesture. Inside the club, Dry locates his female friend Dan, who accuses him of making them bored because of the long wait. Dry introduces her to his people as his friend from the nearby college who brought her friends to the club for a celebration. A girl named Yudi tries to make conversation with Jang and asks what he does for a living, but he pays little attention to her and only gives one-word answers to her questions. Jang tells her that he is a teacher, and she automatically cusses her luck for getting paired up with someone that has a low-paying job. Dagan walks up to the pair and greets Jang. She excuses Yidi and offers to talk to her on his behalf. Taking her to the side, Dan informs Yadi that Dry would give her 200 if she spends time with Jang, and she agrees. Jang listens to their conversation and cusses Dry for offering money to the girl for her to spend time with him. Dagan leaves them alone, and Yudi moves closer to him and offers to pour his drink in a more friendly manner, unlike when they first started talking. Jang settles down and becomes at ease with her, and they both begin to talk in their own space while everyone else minded their business. For about 10 minutes, Yi entertains and attends to him, and she regularly refills his drink, which he likes. Later, Dan pulls Yidi away because she is enjoying herself way too much. The other girls join them, and they head to the restroom together for a discussion. Dagan tells Yudi that she'll give her the details of what she is to do in the restroom, but she needs to take the opportunity to take Jang to the hotel room, where they will set the plan she is to tell her in motion. Jiang is now alone since the girls went to the restroom together, and Dry uses the opportunity to talk to him. He asks if Jiang is interested in Yai, and if he would like to take her home, and Jiang confronts him about the 200 payment. Dry tells Jiang that he is misunderstanding the issue because he is only trying to help a poor girl in need. Earlier, Dan whispered to him that Yai is a naive and innocent girl in need of a rich guy to entertain to earn money to open a flower shop with her boyfriend, so he decided to help her with the money, so that another person will not take advantage of her. Jiang thinks that he still got played even though Dan and Dry are trying to do what is best for Yai, but he says nothing to Dry, and just continued to look at the clubgoers who are having fun on the dance floor. On the way back from the bathroom, Dan calls out to Dry by his real name, Mai-san, to save her because a pervert is harassing her on the dance floor. Manhwa and Dry rush to attack them in their usual aggressive manner, and they order the guy to leave Dan and the other girls alone because they belong to them. The guy insists that he just wants to have fun with them for a bit and return them afterwards, but Manhwa and Dry were not having it. Manhwa and Dry become angry that they were referring to the girls in that manner, and they decide to teach them how to be a gentleman. A fight ensued between both groups, and Manhwa and Dry injured the other boys. Wang Xiao, the injured guy, tells his boys to do something, but Manhwa threatens them not to come close or they will face his wrath. He tells Jiang to praise him for acting cool, and he applauds them for defending the girls. The other boys vow that it is not over as they leave the club. One of the guys in the crowd tells the others that they should fulfill Wang Xiao's orders by picking a fight with Manhwa. Jiang is alarmed because he cannot allow anything to happen to Manhwa as it will affect Zhao Wuji and the old man, so he intervenes and commands everyone to stop. The girls see Jiang's actions as a noble one, and they immediately flock around him to ask questions and fawn over him. Yedi asks him if he teaches of any of the guys that showed up, and Dan's friend gushes over Jiang. Just as everything began to wind down and the shouting stopped, one of Wang Xiao's guys confronts Manhwa and his guys again that his father is from the Dongqing police district, so they cannot come at him. Jiang watches the exchange from behind and says nothing because he knows that Manhwa can handle the boy. Manhwa tells his boys to whack the boy, and another fight started on the dance floor. All the thugs began to fight each other, but Manhwa's boys had the upper hand and they beat the opposing guys mercilessly. Just then, the police enter the place and command everyone to freeze, while they began to search the crowd. The boy's father calls for an ambulance to take his son to the hospital and asks to see who attacked his son. Manhwa fearlessly tells him that he is trying to use the law to cover up for his bad son, and the policeman tells his officers to have him arrested because he is part of the people from the underworld. One of the opposing boys manages to stand up, and he points out the members of Manhwa's group, including Jiang and the girls, but he tells the police that Jiang and the girls were not part of the fight. The police made the arrest, and all the girls were crying over getting arrested and possibly getting expelled from the school. Jiang tells them not to worry. At the Dongqing District Police Station, a senior officer tells Xiao Zhang that he is in luck because they have some people for him to interrogate, and they are hoping that he will do them proud by not messing up the interrogation. Xiao Zhang eagerly promises his superior that he will not let them down, and he will get every information from them. Yuan, Director Sun's son, Zhang, and Dry seats together, while the girls fearfully huddle together in one spot. Manhwa sits in a separate place and acts nonchalantly as they await interrogation. Xiao Zhang walks in, and Manhwa begins to mock them that he is not afraid of a little boy like him. Xiao Zhang becomes angry and lets them know that he will not take any insults from them because he is not a kid. He starts the interrogation with Yuan, who purposely makes Xiao Zhang angry by telling him that he is unemployed when he was asked what he does for a living. The other officer holds Xiao Zhang from beating Yuan, who is unbothered by Xiao Zhang's actions. Xiao lets go of Yuan's rudeness and asks for his guardian's name. He gives his parents' name and their portfolio, and when the policemen realized who his parents were in society, they knew they were in trouble. Yuan tells them that they are yet to realize the extent of the trouble they have caused themselves, because the other boy's parents have more reputation than his parents in the city. One of the police officers takes a closer look at Dry and recognizes him as Mai-san, one of their top boss's sons. Each of the boys began to drop their family names, and the young officers began to cry and curse their boss for putting them in trouble to save his troublesome son. The young officers resolve that they may not have jobs to go back to anymore. But just then they receive a call to let the boys and girls go, and they revolve that maybe they still have a chance. Secretary Huang Yuling, the father of the boys, screams at Xiao Zhang for letting the criminals go when he did not authorize their release. He asks Xiao Zhang to mention to the person that gave him orders to release the criminals and why he would defy his orders, but Xiao Zhang sarcastically tells him that people are afraid of dying and not afraid of him. Just then, Secretary Huang Yuling hears his name from the doorway, and his eyes widen in realization because he was backing the door. His boss, Xiao Zhengyue, tells him that he wrongly arrested people even though his son is the real criminal, and abused his subordinates because he handed over power to him while he was away. Another officer handcuffs Secretary Huang Yuling and leads him away while Meng Huang hugs his uncle Xiao for coming to his rescue. He begins to cry and exaggerates the whole issue that they were trying to kill him, and Zhang calls him a spoiled brat. After leaving the police station, Zhang went back to the house with Yai to hang out. In the morning, Zhou Wuji calls to find out if Zhang enjoyed himself with the activities of the previous day. Zhang tells him to say the real reason for the call, and Zhou Wuji tells him that someone informed him that Zhang returned home the previous day with a girl and he got curious. He tells Zhang to prepare himself for a meeting with one of his old friends who has something to offer them. Zhang asks for the details of the meeting, and Zhou Wuji tells him that they are meeting Lai Qingdi, one of the 4 overlords of the Dragon Emperor underworld. Zhang immediately sits up from the bed and requests for the time and location of the meeting, so that he will prepare. Zhou Wuji offers to send a car to pick Zhang up and ended the call. Meanwhile, Didi wakes up to the call and eavesdrops on the conversation. She thinks that it would be good for her if she can look for a way to marry Zhang. Zhang thinks that the meeting must be important for Zhou Wuji to invite him to tag along and decides to go and hear what it is about. He asks if she can follow him to the meeting, and he permits her since they were going to eat. Zhang prepares for the meeting with Yai and they leave the house together. On their way, they meet Meng Huang and his companions, and he asks where Zhang was headed to. Zhang tells him that he is meeting up with a friend, and Meng Huang is surprised that Zhang has another friend in the city aside from him. Meng Huang tells him that it is a meeting with Lai Qingdi, one of the 4 overlords of the Dragon Emperor underworld. He tells them that they are free to come along if they want to accompany him, and Zhou Wuji will also be at the meeting. Meng Huang is not familiar with the name, but Dry and Yuan think that they may be unworthy to share a table with someone like Lai Qingdi. The boys consider that they may be sent out of the place if they try to go with Zhang, but Zhang does not see it that way. Since they refuse to go, he leaves with Yai, but Meng Huang tells him that Yai is unqualified to attend such meetings because of the kind of people that will be there. Yi agrees not to go and begs Zhang to call her after the meeting. Zhang arrives at the meeting venue to meet bodyguards everywhere, and he understood that the meeting must be serious and dignified. Inside the meeting place, he sees Lai Qingdi and considers him a harmless man because of his appearance. Zhou Wuji welcomes Zhang and introduces him to Lai Qingdi, but he tells Zhang that he prefers to be called Shuji. Zhang is surprised because the director Shuji knows is a famous philanthropist who is the director of the Charity Federation. Not only is he a giver, but he is a simple person who avoids conflict. Lai Qingdi acts humble and tells Zhang not to mind all that Zhou Wuji have said because the position suits him and allows him to be charitable towards family and friends, and also benefits him in avoiding conflict and helping people to resolve conflicts. Zhang is also introduced to the Tiger of Southern Xinjiang, King Yin Zidao, who is a powerful fist master and one of the 3 first step masters in China. Zhang walks in like a boss and seats among the elders without greeting them, which King Yin Zidao considers rude, because he believes elders should be respected. Zhang observes that the man's qi is strong and watches him as he controls objects around him. Lai Qingdi tells Zhou Wuji that Zhang is too young to be his successor, so King Yin will have to test his abilities. Zhou Wuji admits that Zhang is quite young, and in order to stabilize their overall power and reputation, they are capable of handling anyone who dares to offend them, so Zhang is not to be underestimated. Zhang is to face off with Shi Chengsheng to test his abilities, because the others are doubting him. King Yin Zidao swiftly attacks Zhang, and he manages to contain the blow with his fist. Zhou Wuji commends King Yin Zidao's fastness and the way he carries himself as he continues to go against Zhang. Zhang pulls a stunt to stop the next attack from King Yin Zidao, which surprises the older man. Zhang tells King Yin Zidao that he is not too bad because he blocked a 1,000-pound force, but his fist is stronger than he thinks. He dashes off again and tells King Yin Zidao to follow him, and the old man increases his speed because he does not want such a young person to win a challenge against him. King Yin Zidao dodges into the air and holds out his hand against Jiang within the air, but Jiang dodges to the side and tells him that he has clearly underestimated his power. King Yan Zidao thinks that Jiang must be distracted by all the talking and decides to use the opportunity to go after him, but again, Jiang proves his ability to the old man be escaping from him. King Yan Zidao wonders how it is possible for Jiang to do all he is doing, but he says nothing because he refuses to let Jiang see his effect on him. Jiang asks him if he would like to continue, and they start another round of intense fighting. Lai Qingdi admits that after seeing Jiang for himself, he now believes that there is someone that can surpass Shi Changxing and even follow in his footsteps. King Yan Zidao comes to a halt and makes the peace sign. He admits Jiang's talent and tells him that he has yet to see anyone like him in 100 years, and he may just be the strongest in China and may attain it in the world, but he cannot date Shi Changxing yet. Jiang asks King Yan Zidao how it is possible that even with the system's help, he is unfit to challenge and defeat Shi Changxing. King Yan Zidao tells him that 15 years ago, he met Shi Changxing and lost miserably. He describes the encounter for them, which leaves them with a cold feeling. Shi Changxing only used a single finger stroke for him, and he was bedridden for 3 years until he recovered fully from the dreadful experience. Zhao Wuji tells Jiang not to bother about Shi Changxing because he cannot be fully described to Jiang's understanding at the moment. But he promises that he will not be a problem to Jiang in any way, and tells him not to feel too bad about what they have told him. Lai Qingdi tells Jiang that all those who believe in superiority and dominance will suffer loss at the hands of Shi Changxing at least once in their lives. Everyone admits that it is a sore subject that they should not discuss, and they propose to have a drink instead. Someone mentions the woman that Lai Qingdi lost to Shi Changxing, and he grew upset and threatens to not entertain the person anymore. Jiang receives news that he can get back to work the next day, and he decides to check on the company's reports. At the company, Miss Yeo sits on Jiang, which makes him uncomfortable, because someone can walk in on them. Someone enters the office to meet Miss Yeo and Jiang in that compromising position and immediately apologizes to the duo. Jiang complains about Miss Yaoi's conduct, and she tells him that it is only a harmless misunderstanding. Jiang tells her that she should take care of herself as a female so that she will get someone special to marry her, because she cannot continue to work for him for the rest of her life. Jiang tells her that he has classes in the afternoon, so she should not bother with working too much. He gives her with items he bought during his travel, and tells her that he has sent them to her house. When he left the office, Miss Yeo adjusts her makeup and thinks that Jiang is not bad, and she could possibly make a move on him. Jiang gets occupied with his work schedule and focuses on them. After one of his lectures, he texts Wuxingxin, and she tells him about her activities while he was away. Wuxingxin gets suggestive with the text that they can end up in bed, which upsets Jiang. Jiang suddenly begins to wonder what was wrong with all the girls he has encountered recently, and complains that he just wants a normal date like going to the movies, but it has become almost impossible. In the middle of his rant, he receives a call from Yao asking him on a dinner date, and he accepts. She tells him that she will send him the time and location of the date after setting it up. After ending the call, Yao is surprised that he did not reject her request. At dinner, she thanks him for not rejecting her request for a date and declares that Jiang is hers for the night. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your like too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.